Okay, it looks like we have a good amount of people who've joined us today. Thank you so much. My name is Patricia Nicandro, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager for the Department of Housing, Dining, and Student Centers. And again, just thank you and welcome. And we are so very excited to have all of you back on campus, as this past year has been quite unique, we'll say. So I know that you must have a ton of questions regarding just our plans for this year, especially as it comes to move-in and just living on our campus. But before I start today and just sort of cover the agenda, I would like to introduce this amazing team of ours in housing, starting with our wonderful director, Rick Morisi, Jen Fox, our Associate Director of Strategy, Mark Lutger, our Marketing and Communications Coordinator, and actually Mark and Jen are going to be managing that Q&A chat box on the lower portion of your screen where you're going to be asking questions to our team. We also have Victoria Van Kirk Pride, our wonderful Associate Director of Operations. We have Eric Musselman, our Assistant Director of Facilities and Technology. And last but not least, the wonderful Kiana Stone, who is our partner over in Res Ed. So she can talk more about the on-campus communities and what to expect when you're living in those residence halls, okay? So, with all that being said, I am going to go ahead and share the program with you today. So just hold on while I share my screen. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that. Okay, so we're going to start today with a general overview of fall move-in. And then Rick will address the COVID-19 vaccination requirement and general COVID practices as you're living on our campus. And then next, our team will help answer questions that you've submitted through the Q&A chat box, which you should see on the lower portion of your screen. So we'll either answer these directly through that Q&A chat box or live. So big plug for that Q&A chat box. No need to raise your hand or anything like that. Just enter your questions directly through that, please. And then we'll wrap up with some important move-in resources and some closing remarks from Rick. Okay, so let's talk about fall move-in. At this point, everyone should have booked a move-in appointment via the housing portal. If you haven't done that yet, then here's the link. For Lincoln Park residents, it's going to be myhousing.depaul.edu, which you see right here on the screen. For University Center residents, you'll go through ucresidentservices.com. And please know that you can make changes to your move-in appointment. However, changes cannot be made 24 hours prior to your appointment. So you definitely want to do that more than a day in advance, please. Move-in dates are as follows. So students participating in Discover Chicago may select August 28th or August 29th as our move-in date. Students who are not participating in Discover Chicago may select September 4th or September 5th, which is our general move-in. And then no one may move in on Labor Day, which is September 6th. So please do not show up on that particular date. So on your move-in date, you're allowed up to 2 move-in helpers. So whether it's your parents or 2 friends, and everyone must wear a face covering on that move-in day. Also, you see on the screen our move-in webpage, which has all the details I just covered and more. And that includes our move-in guides for Lincoln Park and University Center in the Loop, and our check-in stations when you first arrive on campus. This information was also shared via email, so please check your inbox as well. And then before we stop talking about move-in, just wanted to share 3 very important things to remember. So number 1, you must book a move-in appointment. As I mentioned earlier, move-in appointments are key because they help with the flow of traffic in our bustling neighborhoods. And appointments help us continue to social distance. So that's very, very important right there. And then number 2, you must have your DePaul ID card to access your residential building and dining. Now, if you didn't receive your DePaul ID card in the mail through that online submission process, please go to the ID Card Services office on campus in the Lincoln Park Student Center before your move-in appointment. And University Center residents, you don't have to worry about that. You'll have your own University Center ID separate for your building, though you will eventually need that DePaul ID card to access certain areas on campus. And then number 3, please, please, please check our online resources. Those housing emails are key. As I mentioned before, they have move-in guide information. They have the check-in station information. This is also on our website as well. If you go to go.depaul.edu/housing, you can easily access all that information, or you could speak to one of our staff members live through, we have our own chat on our website, available Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central. Now, I know that there are 3 things here on the screen, but there's one more that we could possibly add to the list, which is your COVID-19 vaccination. But I'll let Rick cover that point with you next as we talk about COVID in general.
Thanks, Patricia. And thank you all for joining us. Once again, I'd like to offer my welcome to everyone. So I want to talk just a little bit about, as we continue to navigate this pandemic, what that really looks like and what that means for our campus, our campus community, but especially for our residence hall community. So the first thing to note is that DePaul has made the decision, as many other colleges and universities across the country have made a similar decision, to have our students and our faculty and staff all be vaccinated. So that is a requirement. There are exemptions, of course, that students and faculty and staff may need to request for specific reasons, and that's fine. And know that there are exemptions being granted by the university. However, at this time, those exemptions do not reach to housing. We do not have any spaces at this point where we would be able to house an unvaccinated student. And so all of the students living in the residence halls are going to need to have that vaccination. And in addition, they're going to need to submit proof of vaccination to our Office of Registrar. So you can see on the screen right now, number 2 is how to submit that important documentation to make sure that the university, that we DePaul know that you have completed your vaccination. You will really need, if you're getting 2 shots, you will need to do that after your second shot has been completed. So the other important part there to remember is that we will not be able to allow students to move in, even during their move-in time, if they have not submitted that very important documentation to the registrar's office. So please, 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 before you come to, there's been several emails and notifications sent out about this, but we really need especially our housing students, to make sure that that is taken care of before you show up to move in. So in addition, some other things to kind of keep in mind is that we will have hand sanitizer, we will have disposable masks available. As Patricia said earlier, we do request and really hope that everyone will wear a face covering during the move-in process. So if you forget your mask, no problem. We do have masks available for you. And as I said, we do have hand sanitizer in all of our residence halls. So for more information about this kind of ever-changing, just recently in Chicago, we've had a little bit of a surge. We don't think that's anything to be super concerned about at this point, but we do want you to know that that is happening. And as a result, the restrictions in Chicago have started to get just a little bit more, towards wearing masks again and things like that. And so on campus right now, it is a requirement that face coverings be worn in all of our buildings on campus. So this is not just about the move-in process, but even once we start the fall quarter, students, faculty, and staff are all going to need to be masked when inside any of our buildings. Outside is a different story, but inside you will need to wear those masks. So if you look at number 4, the link to our COVID information for housing, we're updating it as quickly as we can whenever we get new information. So that's your best source to stay up to date on what's going on campus and specifically in housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rick. So why don't we get on to the question and answer portion of our program here. So Rick, I would like you to actually stay on board because we do have some vaccinated or vaccination related questions. And the first one is a good one to ask here. So I plan to get my first vaccination soon. Would I be able to submit the vaccine card that only has one shot written down to be able to qualify to move in on campus?
That is a really great question. Thank you for asking that. So where we are at right now is in order to move on campus, you need to be fully vaccinated. So that does mean if you are doing the 2-shot vaccination regimen, you need to have both shots before you can live on campus. One suggestion might be, and a lot of things have changed so much in such a short period of time. So one option might be is you still have time right now to go potentially look at getting a Johnson & Johnson vaccination because that is a 1-shot. And as long as you have that before you move in, there will not be any issue. But if you are between both shots, we are going to ask you to wait until you are totally complete with your second shot given to you before you can move to campus. So that is a really common question. I hope that answers the question. If you have any specific, for the person that asked that question, if you have a specific situation that you need to discuss with us, please feel free to email us. And Patricia's going to have that up throughout the presentation, and we can talk to you individually.
Thank you so much, Rick. Why don't you just hang on for one more because Victoria is going to get a lot of questions about move-in next, which you can also answer to. Actually, I think the majority of our team can. But a question from Elena. I submitted my vaccine record. How do I know if it's been received and approved?
That is a great question too. You should, and I know this isn't the best answer, but you should assume that everything has been received. You can contact the registrar's office though directly. I don't actually have their email in front of me right now, but if you go to kind of our DePaul main page, I am certain you can find an email address for the registrar's office, and they would absolutely be happy to check and verify for you that they have received it. Unfortunately, you don't get any kind of an email either way saying, yes, we've received everything, or no, we did not receive it. But if you are receiving emails from us, from housing, or from DePaul saying we do not have all of your information, that is a good indicator that that the registrar's office has not received it or has not processed it yet. So the best bet is to go directly to the registrar's office and they can let you know.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rick. Now, the next two questions are about move-in and visitor policy. So I think Victoria would be the best resource for that particular one. So Victoria, the question is, after my appointment, can I have more than 2 people help me visit my dorm?
We are limiting to 2. I did see somebody wrote that they have a younger sibling, and I understand that's a little bit of a different situation because we're talking about childcare, taking care of a family member. So in that case, of course, bring the sibling, but we really do want to keep most people at 2 because we're trying to limit traffic. We're still working our way through this. We want to keep everybody as safe as possible, and we just don't want to have some families are huge, and maybe all 10 aunties and uncles want to see a space, but we just can't accommodate that this year. So if it's one sibling or something like that, yes, okay, that's fine. But by and large, we're going to try and keep it at 2 for most. Thanks.
Thank you, Victoria, for answering actually both of those questions. But the next one is sort of parking and visiting here. So the question is, will there be parking available when our 20-minute appointment is over?
Yes, you will be given a wristband when you check in. So the student will check in, and then the student will be given a couple of wristbands for their helpers, and those wristbands serve as in-out parking in our garages. There's also quite a bit of street parking, but not in the tow zone areas because we're trying to keep those free and clear so we can get people moved in. But there is parking around the campus. Just pay attention to street signs. You don't want to park in a zone or something like that. But the garages are probably your best bet, and those are covered for the day under the wristband.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Now, I know that your group also manages keys, but not necessarily mail keys, but will we be getting our mail keys during move-in day? And is there going to be section signs on where to go for that during move-in day?
Okay, so as far as signage, the move-in guide is probably one of your best bet because in there you're going to see maps. They'll tell you when you need to check in for your actual room check-in. Now, as far as mail keys, students do need to visit the mail center, which is on the 3rd floor of the student center. We will not be giving out mail keys during the check-in for your unit, your campus unit, but students can go anytime that week, following and pick up their key in the mailroom. 3rd floor of
Perfect.
student center. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so the next one is more about move-in dates. So we have two very unique questions here. So the first, can we move in on the 28th or 29th, even if we are participating in Explore Chicago? I know Adam Morgan, who is our Associate Director of Occupancy, he would be, I think, best to answer that one. But I know Rick and Victoria are well versed in this. So I hope you two have a response.
We do. You can. The answer is yes. You can move in on those dates if there are check-in times available. But let me please say this: we really are trying to limit, since we have limited appointment times. We have enough for everybody who's in Discover for sure, and we have some beyond that even. But we are trying to limit that weekend to be. There are a lot of students in Discover. So we want those students to make sure that they can get their appointment times and move in because they have to start their program on Monday morning. So if you can hold off until the following weekend, we would appreciate that and we would prefer that. But if you need to come the weekend prior for whatever reason and you're not in Discover, you can do that. Just know that it's going to be a little lonely on campus because all the other students are going to be going to their Discover activities and will be gone all day. So we also want you to be successful in your first week of college. So that's why we have those different dates.
Perfect. Thank you, Rick. And then the next one is for perhaps an international student. I'm arriving to Chicago on an international flight, and my arrival time happens to be outside of the available move-in appointment times for that date. If I notify my housing facility of my arrival time, will I be allowed to move in?
We recognize that it's not always easy to do international travel plans that just align perfectly. We understand that you're probably gonna be very tired too, so we want to try and keep this very easy for you. So for somebody who's in that situation, so again, this is just for people who are coming in internationally. If they come to their residence hall front desk and let them know they're there, we'll have a staff member called to help them and get them signed in. So ideally, everyone has an appointment time, but this sounds like it's a situation that deserves a little bit of different attention. So
Thank you, Victoria. And Rick, if you could stay on, we have two questions regarding vaccinations. So the first one from Robin. I originally had a COVID-19 vaccine exemption, but ended up receiving the vaccine. When I go to upload proof of immunization, I cannot select COVID-19 as an option for uploading my documents because it already says exempt. My only option is to upload documents under exemption. Should I upload my vaccination card here? And perhaps the registrar's office would be the best place to start, but if you could elaborate, that would be great.
Sure. No, that's a great question, Robin. And I don't want to give you bad information. So my suggestion would be to contact the registrar's office just to make sure. It would seem to me that would be the best way to do it, is to go ahead and upload it in the exemption section. But I would say, just to double verify that, I would reach out to the registrar's office and they can absolutely help you out with that.
Perfect. Thank you, Rick. And this next question from Stephen, I wish Cheryl Hover were here joining us, but his question is, if someone were to test positive on campus, what plan is there to isolate and quarantine?
So we are planning for that scenario. We do know that, again, everyone living in our residence halls will be vaccinated, but we also know that doesn't mean that you will absolutely not test positive for COVID. As a result of that, we have identified some empty spaces on campus. We have a few of those where we will be able to complete the isolation process. If that were to become necessary for any of our students, They would be moved temporarily from the room that they're living in to one of these spaces that I just mentioned, where you will live, alone in a room, and probably have your own bathroom too. Though the recommendation does say that two people who have both tested positive can still share spaces for short periods of time, which would include a bathroom. So it is possible that may happen depending on how many students we might have at one time. But ideally, everyone would have their own bathroom in their own bedroom. We will deliver meals to you so that you don't have to leave and that you still get, your nutrition. Yeah, so I mean, that is our plan. The other thing to note, because this is another common question that's a follow-up to that, is if someone tests positive and the question is, does then their roommate have to also isolate? And the answer is no, not initially. Now, if that roommate or suite mate or any other kind of close contact on campus were to test positive, we would absolutely move that person as well. But as a what's different now than the way things were, a year ago. A year ago, we were isolating and quarantining everybody who even came in contact. Now that recommendation, that guidance from CDC has changed. So we only have to isolate people who have tested positive. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to everyone as well.
Thank you, Rick. And then please follow our housing COVID information page. So hopefully we'll have on there our quarantine and isolation guide. As Rick said, we just need to nail down a couple of these details, and then we can have that readily available on that particular page of our website. So why don't we give Rick and Victoria a little bit of a break? Kiana, are you there? Hopefully you can help answer the next one because it's a service related question. And if we are coming from out of state, are there local stores where we could order bedding ahead of our arrival and pick it up there? Okay. Oh, and then looks like Kiana,
Yes.
well, she'll be putting that. Oh, it looks like this message went to all of the people.
I got it.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yep. So hello, everyone. Yes, there are a number of different locations that I'm sure you're familiar with in your hometown that are near campus. If you want to register and look up that information, I know our local Targets are doing pickup service. And so I think from what I've seen, parents on the Parents of DePaul Facebook page talking about placing orders and then doing a pickup, Target pickup, or there is a local Walmart that's not too far, also from campus, where you can look up that information in proximity into the city after you do your initial unload to do that. One thing I put in the chat that I wanted to point out is that our Residence Hall Council has a partnership with a company called On Campus Marketing, OCM. And so any purchases made through OCM, a portion of those funds go back to our Residence Hall Council to put on programming for your students. They have all the essentials. And so everything from bedding, kitchen needs for those who may be in having the apartment communities, or you're looking for a couple of pots and pans or things for some of the community kitchen common spaces, and those last minute little nuances to make the room pop. And so you can find all those things at OCM. So we definitely wanted to plug them, but yes, there is also that option. And I believe with the linen program that we have, that if you place an order with the linens, those items get delivered to the university for your student to pick up from the student center.
Thank you so much, Kiana. That was great. Okay, so under the packing, what to bring related sort of stratosphere here, this one I think Rick would be more equipped to answer, but I think we could all join in the conversation. So it says on the move-in items list to pack a go bag. I was wondering, what should we put in that go bag?
This is such a great question because we've gotten this a few times too. So, this is not meant to scare anyone. This is, we just talked about, what happens if a student does test positive and needs to go into, kind of an isolation situation. The to-go bag is a recommendation just to be somewhat ready for that. but please know that it's not like you find out that you test positive and you have 5 minutes to move to your isolation look. Like, we want to do that quickly, right? We want to limit the time that you're going to spend with roommates and suite mates and things of that nature, just to kind of help limit that risk factor. But if you are so inclined and want to be ready to go a little bit faster, that's what that recommendation is for. And really, you will be in isolation for up to 10 days. That is the current CDC recommendation. So think about, we're going to bring you food, but you'll probably want to bring, chargers, laptop, and these are not, and again, these are things that you can grab. You'll have plenty of time to grab if you find out that you are indeed in that situation. So in the to-go bag, maybe have something to sleep in, maybe an extra toothbrush if you have one, things of that nature. But it's really meant just to get you a little bit more ready, a little bit more quickly, should that situation come up.
Perfect. Thank you. And while we're still on sort of the COVID topic here, we have a question from Isabella. Will there be temperature checks at the door on move-in day?
No temperature checks. We are not going to be doing that any longer. That is not currently one of the recommendations. So do not worry about that. I will, though, put in a plug. There is something called the Campus Clear app, if you have not already seen it. And that's something for the last year that we've actually been checking in certain buildings. It's kind of just a list of symptoms and kind of asking you to evaluate yourself to see how you're feeling today. So it's actually helpful. And we do recommend that students download that app and, think about, before you go to class, before you go to the dining hall, before you're interacting with other people, maybe take a look at that app and ask yourself some of those questions. It's about a 10-second quick checklist for you, but it might help. And if you are experiencing any of those symptoms, it might be best to, kind of stay in that day. So that's really what it's for. But we are not checking that app either at any of our campus locations any longer. So no temperature checks, no checking of the app, nothing like that. You are free to come and go around campus as you please. And if that changes at all, we will certainly update the student body as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Rick. Now I think I'll give everybody a break before we get into some Victoria related questions. But Michael is asking, is there any way to see rooms in person before the move-in date? I'm not sure if my room supplies certain appliances such as microwave and don't want to be over or under prepared. So Michael, this is a very good question here. We do have a tour room on campus. You can, through admissions, try to book an appointment for a nice socially distanced on-campus tour there. But we also have our virtual tour. So just look for your residence hall or on-campus apartment, and it should give you a good sense. I know that when you actually are in the experience, take a look at the bottom. You'll notice some supplemental photos. There are some 360s in there. There are some still shots in there as well of what your room may or may not look like. Or, just feel free to give us a call too. We'd be more than happy to try to describe everything that you could possibly need here. And then this is just one plug. If you happen to be in a residence hall, know that you can secure one of those microwave, refrigerator, freezer. We usually call it a micro fridge for your room, and that's through mycollegefridge.com. Last day to place an order / rent one will be August 15th. So that's coming up really fast. If someone could actually put that in the chat for Michael, that would be great. So why don't we get on to Victoria here, who's very familiar with all of these questions. One we had actually mentioned earlier, but if Victoria could go into it a little bit more. So this question from Emily: how much time will we have to unload after our designated move-in time?
Okay, just walking everybody through it. So the unloading process is brief, but the appointment window, so the time for the actual appointment is about 20 minutes. That doesn't mean you have to make everything happen in 20 minutes. It just means you need to get your items unloaded and start getting it into the hall, because we need to make space for those coming behind you. So what we're trying to avoid is any cars just hanging out. We'll have people directing cars. So, you know, blocking any of the loading dock areas, because we need the appointment times to be facilitated first. And then as soon as the car is empty of the items and they're on the curb and somebody's with them, then the car can be moved right to the parking garage. So then that clears it for the next person to come up. And then we'll have bins on an honor system. They're very large bins. We do ask though, if you've got some wheels, bring them, because that can only help you. If you've got like a dolly or anything like that, that can only help. But the bins we can load items into, and then you can bring them up and then unload your items real quick upstairs and bring the bin back down for the next person. So you just got to keep in mind, there are people coming after you. We want to be as efficient as possible. But I think that should answer it, right?
I think so, Victoria. Now the next question here, what is a visitor policy during the quarter? So outside of the move-in date.
I can see that our director popped on as well, because this is a very active conversation. As you know, with COVID, we have to adjust, and we have to adjust often. So we're actually in discussions about that right now, because we're trying to determine the best course of action to keep the community safe. So last year, I can say visitors were not able to come to campus because we didn't have vaccines at that point. I don't foresee that being the plan for the entire year, but I believe we're going to have to kind of take it, we have to approach and watch and see and make the best decision for the community at that time. So that's subject to change. I don't know if Rick wants to add anything to that. I know he's had quite a few conversations about it this week, so.
Yeah, I would just add a small piece to that, and thank you for that, Victoria. I think that was perfect. I mean, we are continuing to have that conversation. We are having this conversation with our medical team, with our medical experts, because we know it's we know students want to have visitors, and we want you to have visitors, right? So that's going to be important to us, but we also need to maintain, as safe of an environment as we can. So this is just a little bit of a plug back to that kind of COVID-19 housing resource page that we talked about. That is going to be a place where we will provide updates about the visitor policy as soon as we have them. And I'm actually hoping that we'll have a little bit more information on this probably sometime next week. So stay tuned and check that page out, and hopefully we'll have a little bit more information for you at that time.
Thank you both. Okay, question from Michael and Rick. Why don't you stay on board for this one, because this one's dining related. So when do the meal swipes become active? I am a CQM mentor participating in Discover, and my move-in is scheduled for the 24th into McCabe. So I'm wondering if the meal swipes will be active right when I move in.
That is a great question, Michael. Thank you for that. Meal swipes will become active actually on Saturday, the 28th. We do know that we have some students arriving before that. We've even got some students living on campus now, actually. And unfortunately, we have to coincide the date with the actual start of the housing agreement, which is August 28th. So you will be on your own for a couple days, unfortunately, but we will be open as of brunch on Saturday the 28th, and then we will have continuous dining after that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rick. Okay, so this one is really quite simple. Do the apartments in Sanctuary Hall have microwaves in the kitchens? And the answer is yes, they do, and a refrigerator, because they're considered on-campus apartments. Okay, here's another one that's a little bit more facility related, but I don't know the exact dimensions, but Joshua is asking, how big is the cargo elevator at University Hall? Now, I would think maybe someone like Eric Musselman would know, or Victoria. So what should they expect when they go to U-Haul and see that freight elevator?
Yeah, the University Hall freight elevator is large enough to accommodate people moving in. I'm not sure if there's a specific question, but we can move in, like if somebody's bringing in a futon, that should probably fit okay. If it's bigger than what fits in the elevator, it's probably too big for the room. Let's put it that way.
That's a good answer, Eric. Okay, so let's see here. Lewis is asking, would we be able to check in at the appointment time and then go buy stuff for the room, and after seeing it in person, then return later to move the things into the room? Victoria is very familiar with this question, so why don't you have at it, Victoria?
Yes, the initial time is 20 minutes because again, that's designed to move as many people through as quickly as we can. So what we want to avoid is cars hanging out all day or coming back and, taking up the loading zone area. But it's totally acceptable to leave the unit, go to the store, shop, get some things. I would just ask for a very quick, and speedy unloading of the car if you do that, and then moving the car directly to the garage, and then take the items up to get the room set. So it's not like you have 20 minutes to make all that magic happen. You just have 20 minutes to do your initial check-in, and then you can leave and do all the things that'll help you complete the experience.
Thank you so much for that. Okay. Oh gosh. Now, Leah, and maybe Eric or Kiana can help me out with this one. Both fridges have been sold out on the My College Fridge website. Any other options?
Yeah, unfortunately, they have such a high demand that I don't believe they have any additional in stock if it's showing sold out. You might keep trying. There might be some order cancellations in the coming weeks, so just keep trying before that deadline of the 15th. Beyond that, I would just recommend perhaps purchasing a small fridge from one of the retailers like Target, Amazon, Home Depot. I'm sure that those are a very popular item right now, and we're also seeing some supply chain issues ourselves getting fridges. So if worst case scenario, you can't get a fridge for yourself right away and you are trying to get one for later, each floor lounge does have in the traditional residence halls, does have a kitchenette, and there is at least a small fridge there. So for a few personal items, if you wanted to label them with your name and place them in there, of course, that's just based on how much space would be available based on who else is doing that though. But unfortunately, that's something that we can't really assist with, and we're experiencing the same shortage of supplies right now too.
Eric, thank you so much for that explanation. And
Yeah,
this one,
I was just going to add on really quick is that once everyone moves in, the RAs will facilitate a community meeting, and they will come up with like community rules about common space, cleaning, what to store in those spaces. But students will cook, they will, put extra snacks, community snacks, different things like that, or their personal items, and how to kind of go about that. So we do see folks utilizing that.
Perfect. Thank you both. Also, let's see, a room related question here. Does Seton Hall have dressers in their rooms for clothes or just closets? And to my knowledge, I believe they have both, but I know that there are exceptions to the rule in certain buildings, but it looks like Eric's nodding his head here.
Yeah, Seton Hall has built-in closet organizers that are pretty cool. The Seton Hall, most of the rooms have a large walk-in closet, and there's plenty of hanging space and baskets and some built-in drawers. If it's one of the handful of rooms that doesn't have all of the built-in closet works organizers and we needed to supplement, we do provide additional dressers in the spaces where appropriate, but you'll have everything you need when you arrive.
Perfect.
Students love those closets. I find residents using it for study space, find of them, using it for plenty of room. Like, I think, especially those with extravagant wardrobes, I don't know don't bring all that stuff. They're not wearing it. Most of the time they wearing PJs to class. I'm just saying. But they will have plenty of space in Seton for being able to hang up their items and put things away.
Thank you so much, Kiana. Yes, and Seton does have those lovely, just the floor to ceilings, you guys. It's pretty grand in my opinion.
Fun fact, Seton used to be a glove factory back in the day before it was converted. So it's awesome.
Yeah, we do have some fun historical facts about some of our buildings. Even Sanctuary Hall is a good example someone had mentioned earlier. Okay, so now we have some good miscellaneous sort of questions coming in here. Next one I'm going to direct to Rick. Are dining options changed due to COVID? As an example, to-go dining only?
Oh, great question. They did change in this past year. Dining was much more limited in what we were able to provide, and also how we did do to-go only meals. And that is not going to be the case, at least as of now. So we are planning on having a nice and robust dining area where you can eat in and sit with your fellow students and enjoy meals. So yes, I mean, to-go options are absolutely available, but at this point, they are not the only option for you. In fact, we are even going to have our salad bar back, which, believe it or not, we went back and forth about a lot. But we are going to try that out. We're going to be replacing the utensils very regularly so that it is safer. But we feel we can provide that service to or that meal option to our students, and we're gonna definitely try that out. So yes, meals will look a lot more normal, quote unquote, than they have this past year, and we're excited about that.
Thank you so much, Rick. Okay, so now I have some roommate related questions that I'm sure all of you can answer, but Stephen's asking, what resources are there for transfer students to find a roommate?
So Stephen, I'm going to just take a quick stab at this one because I'm not sure if you're asking about, so all roommates have already been assigned. So that's the first thing. We're a couple weeks out from move-in. And so at this point, it might be best for you to contact our office if you have specific questions about roommates because all assignments have been completed already. If you're asking about off-campus housing resources by chance, then that's a question we can also answer offline as well. So yeah, we definitely have resources for roommates, but a lot of those resources typically happen in kind of the May time frame before housing assignments even go out.
Okay, thank you for answering that one, Rick. And then the next roommate related question. Since I don't know my roommate, if we don't get along for some reason, are we allowed to switch roommates? And how would we do so? And I think maybe we should get this from a housing and res ed perspective. So I don't know if Kiana wants to start or if Ricky would like to start with that one.
I'll start and then Kiana will soften it. So we certainly hope that students give getting along with their new roommate the best possible chance. And to that end, we don't make any switches for at least the first couple weeks of the quarter. We want you to kind of try it out. We understand certainly on this, after meeting someone for the first time or even before meeting someone, you may have whatever impression, but we hope that you will work through that and try and, really kind of find common ground with your roommate. If you cannot, then yes, there is definitely a room change process that you would be able to follow. And I will allow Kiana to kind of talk about what those steps would look like.
Absolutely. So often when parents say their goodbyes, that's where my team comes in and they say their hellos. And so we have our resident director, which are master's level professionals, in addition to our resident advisors, which are upper class students that live on the communities with your residents. And what we do is we will schedule over the course of the month of September, as we get things going, what we call roommate agreement meetings. And so that will be an opportunity for each person to sit down and kind of talk about, these are my likes, these are my dislikes, this is what I need to be able to work in this space to be successful. That roommate agreement is a living, breathing document, because one thing we know as students continue to settle and evolve here, their needs, their wants, their living style, after they get that first exam, their study skills are going to change and they're going to need different things to be able to work in that space. And so that RA is going to work with that team of roommates to navigate what that looks like, down to the minute nuances. How are we cleaning the bathroom? Do we create a bathroom schedule? Who's buying the cleaning products? What about snacks? Can I use your hairbrush? What about the last slice of pizza? Whose is it? All of those things. They're going to talk about all those details, because it's the little things that will create the biggest conflicts, and even how to have conflict. If there's a problem, how do I want to be approached, and vice versa. So our team will navigate them through all that. We will also help with mediation when conflicts come up, because conflict will come up. Emotions can sometimes run high, and we see your students at their best and at their worst. And so when we're going to be there to support them through that process. And after we've exhausted all those options and situations, if the best outcome is for a room change, then they'll meet with the RD, submit a form, and we will walk them through that process in hand with housing. And if there is something available, we'll get them reassigned.
Kiana, thank you so much for that very thorough explanation. I don't think you left any stone unturned. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I think next up we should have Eric Musselman, if you're there, because we have a plethora of facility related questions and these could go rapid fire.
Let's go for it.
Let's go for it. Okay, our time with Eric in a minute here. Okay, so why don't we start with Stephanie's questions? Are dorms in University Hall carpeted or have hardwood/tile floor?
That's a great question, Stephanie. We are so excited. We actually just redid all of the flooring in every student room in University Hall this summer. So all of the rooms now have LVT, which is luxury vinyl tile. It looks like hardwood floor. It feels like hardwood floor, but it's actually made of a vinyl product. And we think you're really going to like it. It warms up the space and makes it, it feels like a really nice place to be. That said, some of our other residence halls do have carpet, and we do have those cleaned every year. So the carpeted spaces are also very nice, but we're excited about the new thing in University Hall, and we hope you'll enjoy it.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for answering. Okay, also another flooring related question. What's the flooring like at Sanctuary Hall?
Sanctuary Hall, Sanctuary Hall is an interesting building because it's over 100 years. So you're living in history right there, but we've done a nice job of keeping up with it. So it's a mixture. Some units have actual hardwood floors and some have carpet. It really just depends on the space. We encourage you, if you'd like to bring like an area rug or like a small throw rug, that could warm up any space. And we've seen students use those even on carpet. So that's something that you could plan for either way.
Perfect. Thank you for that one. Now, Lacey has more of a prohibited items related question, but you're an expert on this. Are we allowed to use extension cords?
Unfortunately, no. Extension cords do pose a safety hazard because they don't have a built-in circuit breaker. We do allow you to bring a switched power strip as long as it's got the built-in circuit breaker to prevent the circuit from being overloaded. Those are okay, but standard extension cords or standard outlet splitters that are not part of a switched power strip are not okay.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Oh, and then we have flooring at Belden Racine. Can you explain what that's like?
Belden Racine has carpet.
Okay, thank you for that one. And then why won't we let this one from Joshua be the last one? And you and Victoria could probably chime in here. So do students need to supply bathroom cleaning supplies? So the answer is yes, if you live in suite style and apartment, but then can you go into an explanation about places like Corcoran and Seton?
Of course.
Yeah, you want to do it, Eric? You got it.
Sure.
You got it.
Yeah, you can jump in and back me up. If you live in Corcoran Hall or Seton Hall, those are our two buildings that have communal style bathrooms. Those are professionally cleaned on a daily basis and they're serviced multiple times throughout the day. So those, you don't have to worry about bringing any cleaning supplies for those. If you live anywhere other than Corcoran or Seton Hall, you do need to provide bathroom cleaning supplies because you'll either have a private or a semi-private suite bathroom that you'll need to clean, or an apartment bathroom if you live in one of our apartments. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, over the winter break, the bathrooms and all the suite styles will be cleaned as well. But that's just once. So you want to make sure you're keeping up with it as well. Sharpen up your skills because you're going to want to make sure you have nice restroom space.
And of course, ResEd will help facilitate that conversation between the roommates to determine whose turn it is to buy what, whose turn it is to clean what.
And Kiana's giving a thumbs up there, so all in well. Okay, and then Eric, just one more here, because I think this is a good conversation about what people are able to put on the walls and with what, right? So Robin is asking, are the walls in University Hall drywall or concrete? But if you could actually just answer that briefly and then expand into more of the, okay, what can go on that wall? That would be great.
Yeah, we have a mixture of different types of wall surfaces throughout campus, depending on the building. That building, I believe, has drywall. But in general, our rules are that you should not nail or screw anything into the walls. Things should be hung up on the walls with like poster putty, or we really like those 3M command adhesive strips. Those are easily removable if you follow the directions. They come off cleanly without causing any damage. And they have a variety of different styles of hooks and shelves and all sorts of cool things like that. So no nailing or screwing anything into walls or creating any kind of permanent damage to the walls.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Eric. Okay, it looks like we have a few. Oh, wait. Michael wants to ask you another question here.
Sure.
What is the largest area rug that could possibly fit in a Belden Racine double suite? Now, I wouldn't go excessive on this one, but if you have any recommendations, that would be great.
Yeah, I would say no bigger than like a 5x7, or maybe an 8x10 area rug. The Belden Racine building is carpeted. So really, if you're doing like an area or an accent rug just for like appearance or for comfort, it's really just going to be like in the exposed floor area. You're not going to want to do like a wall to wall rug on top of a carpet. So I would say 5x7 or 8x10 at maybe the most.
Okay, perfect. Oh, okay. And then just one more. We should just do a session with you and just like facilities related questions, but are LED lights allowed?
Yes, LED lights are allowed. If you're talking about the small decorative holiday style lights, those are fine. They just need to be unplugged when you're not in the room, and they can't be run out into the hallway like under the door. Besides that, many of our light fixtures in the residence halls do use LED bulbs, like standard LED bulbs. We've upgraded a lot of energy efficient technology. So we do love those because they do use less electricity and they're better for the environment.
Okay, perfect. Eric, I'm going to give you a little bit of a break here with all the facility related questions, but thank you so much for rapid fire facilities with Eric Musselman. Okay, so Rick, I'm going to turn the next two questions over to you. So this is one of them is regarding vaccinations. You actually already covered this with another student, but if you could kind of go into sort of second dose of the vaccine a little bit more. So if someone does not feel safe taking Johnson & Johnson one-shot vaccine to be able to move in, are there any exceptions or exemptions that can be provided to a student if they plan to get 2 shots but won't have the second shot before August 20th? Could they still move in?
So we are requiring that the vaccination process be completed by the time you move on to campus, which in the case of getting the 2 shots, which is perfectly fine and totally understandable, you would need to have that second shot before moving in. Now, it's ideal to have the second shot and also have like a week or so to kind of let the efficacy of that shot take effect, but we understand that time is of the essence now. So we are okay as long as you have the second shot administered, you can move in pretty much right away. So that is the best we could do, though. We do need to have both shots completely administered before we can let you move on to campus. Thanks for the question.
Yes, and thank you. This one is a more general question. Are the student apartments owned and operated by DePaul?
So the on-campus students apartments are all owned and operated by DePaul. So those would be the ones that are managed through housing. We do have some other apartments that are actually on our campus that we don't manage. We actually outsource those to a management company, which are pretty much all filled with DePaul students. And so if the person asking this question were to be interested in learning more about that, I would recommend that you reach out to us and we will be happy to put you in contact with our management company that manages those. It's not very many, but we do have a few properties that are standalone apartment buildings that we have managed by a third party.
Yes, and then do you want to, and I'm not sure if the student is from University Center, but perhaps you can sort of relay the relationship and why it isn't like a DePaul.edu email that's necessarily emailing them about their resident experience.
Yeah, for sure. So University Center downtown is also not owned by us, and it is managed by the management company of the ownership of the building. But we have a very, very close working relationship with the management company and the ownership for that matter. So what DePaul has is what's called a master lease. And we have various types of apartments and semi-suite units in that building that we do manage. So when I say we manage, I mean for all of the DePaul beds that we have a lease for, we take care of assigning our students, we take care of all of the billing, we take care of everything like that. But in terms of the actual facility, that is not managed by us. But we certainly know that if our DePaul students have any issues, they absolutely can't. I mean, we recommend that you go to the management company, but if you need something from DePaul, we are here. DePaul Housing is here for you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And perhaps you could answer this one because Adam isn't here. So let's see here. I think this is more of a gender assignment sort of related question as it comes to housing. So how is housing sort of like organized and roommates set up and all of that? And if you, let's say, identify as not female, but other, like, you know, if you could just kind of go into that and sort of Adam's role as our liaison.
Absolutely, yes. So Adam, Patricia has referred to Adam a few times. So Adam is our Associate Director of Occupancy and Administration for our department. And Adam wears a lot of hats in that role, but one of the hats that he wears is the oversight of making all of the housing assignments for our students. And in that role, Adam also is the person that we have designated as our department liaison to talk to any students about any specific situations that they may have as it relates to their living experience on campus. So that could be about gender, that could be about ability, it could be about religious needs and preferences, whatever that may look like. Adam is really kind of the person to talk to so he can figure out what are your needs and what is it that we can do to help you achieve that. So in terms of the gender question, because this does come up a lot, you know, we have co-ed facilities in terms of, so we have males and females living on the same floor. Our units are not co-ed by unit. However, I also want to make sure everyone understands that students get to identify their gender. We don't ask you for any further explanation about that. It's where you are most comfortable, and that is how you will be assigned. But by that same definition, that means that we are putting those who identify as males with others who identify as males. Same thing, those who identify as females with others who identify as females. So, but again, we know it's not even as simple as that sometimes. And that's why we have Adam so that he can talk through any of those situations with our students. So I think it's a great question. I know it was framed as kind of a general question, but if the person who asked that has some specific concerns, I really would suggest that you go ahead and just reach out to the housing account, but stay in that account that you'd like to be connected to Adam, and he will reach out to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that. And we have just 2 more questions. You guys have impeccable timing as we're approaching 6 o'clock. But Rick, you could probably stay on board for this one because you and Victoria, you could answer this one too, as you have discussed and addressed the visitor policy. But do visitors have a time limit in the dorms?
So I'll answer this question first with the normal policy. And I continue to use air quotes for normal because we know that we're not quite there yet, but we're trying. In our normal visitor policy, we do say that a overnight guest cannot visit for more than 72 consecutive hours or 3 days. That is for everyone's benefit, for the roommates and, you know, for the student themselves. I mean, if you have a guest, they are a guest. They are not a live-in forever visitor, right? So that is why we have that policy in effect. Right now, just to reiterate, the guest policy is very much up for discussion in terms of how we're going to manage it this fall and beyond. So I don't really want to make comments about overnight guests or how long guests can stay until we really kind of firm up exactly what we're doing. And we will have that information as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you so much, Rick. And I think we're just going to wrap up questions as it is 6 o'clock. If you have any further, please email housing@depaul.edu. Actually, I'm going to share a few more resources before we have our closing remarks with Rick, who is our head of DePaul Housing. So I have answered that particular question. And for everybody, yes, there will be a recording of this webinar, which is the very last question that we're going to answer. So that's a very good one to close off with, don't you think? So now we're just going to go ahead and we are going to share our screen again so we can just share those sort of last resources before Rick ends with some closing remarks here. So hopefully everyone can see my screen right now. Okay, so again, these are the many different ways that you can get a hold of us. at DePaul Housing. So housing at DePaul.edu. Our phone number is there. Our office is actually located inside of Centennial Hall, kind of joined with the Whole Foods that you see on Fullerton and Sheffield over there. So just head up to that third floor. We're open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. You can follow us on social media at DePaul Housing, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And then again, if you visit our website, housing.depaul.edu, you can go ahead and chat live with one of our staff members, also Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. So those are the many ways you can reach us. And then last but not least, we have all of our different move-in resources. Now, one thing that we have just finalized, and Rick had even mentioned just sort of the ever-changing nature of things, because we're still in the middle of this pandemic. So we have our different policies for housing, and Res Ed also shares these as well, but the guide to student housing, it just has all of our different on-campus policies when you live here, including some related to COVID. We also have our fall move-in webpage. Again, you'll see a check-in station map. You'll see the move-in guides with the packing list, all of that very thorough information right there. We have our fall quarter FAQs, which are more general questions about the fall quarter. And then we have our COVID-19 campus housing information page, where we'll have all the different pieces of information. Again, Rick had mentioned visitor policy going on there. We'll have a we'll have a quarantine and isolation guide on there. So definitely take a screenshot of this particular page, because these will really, really help you prepare once you get to campus. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And also I want to give a little shout out to Mark and Jen for managing those Q&As. Thank you. Thank you. You guys had a lot of really good questions. And thank you so much for helping answer them in the chat box, along with everybody who answered live. So now I'm just going to kick it over to Rick.
Great. Thank you, Patricia. And I'll be just a brief moment here in closing. And thank you to Patricia, our fabulous facilitator, who always does a great job of helping us manage through all these questions. So all I really want to say to those of you who are left, thank you for joining us. Again, I know there's some really complex issues this year that we don't normally have to deal with as it relates to COVID-19 and the ever-changing face of COVID-19. I know these vaccination conversations are tough. They're tough for us too, believe me. But know that, we're doing the best we can. We're doing the best we can with the guidance that we're being given by our city, our state, by the CDC, and just trying to make the best decisions that we can to keep our campus community as safe as possible. So for all of you who are going to be joining us soon, the message I want to leave you with isn't about COVID, and it isn't about vaccines. It's about welcome to campus. It's about, we want to welcome you as with open arms. We want you to start enjoying your college experience. We want you to take part in all of our residence hall activities. We've got some really great and fun stuff planned for you, just even in the first couple weeks. I know there's a question about that. I don't think we got to that, but there's some great welcome week activities. So you're going to have a good time here. We're going to manage this pandemic together. But there has to be some precautions, and we're going to follow those. But more importantly, we're just so happy that you're going to be joining us and that you're going to be part of our DePaul community. So once again, welcome. We look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks, and thank you for joining our webinar. Have a great night, everybody.